Hello viewers, welcome to CEC lectures. Myself Dr. Preeti Jagwani, Assistant Professor from Department of Computer Science, Aryabhatta College, University of Delhi. So as you are aware that presently we are learning the series which is Introduction to Programming in C++, and in our previous lectures we have gone through the functions and kind of basics of function, we can say. And here in this lecture the agenda is, we can say, same but extended, which is here we are going to cover many more things about the functions. So in functions, when we have started, I have told you that there is a list of parameters which a calling function is going to give the parameters are the values which are given to the called function from the calling function. But yes, whenever I am talking about the parameters, there can be I can say two terminologies under parameters, or two types of parameters. These are formal and actual. So the function parameters which are provided inside the definition of the function as a parameter list that follows the function name. When the function is called, we have to pass the actual values of these parameters. Define the function when we have the function definition. But when the function is called, we have to pass the actual values of these parameters, so that using these actual values that function is able to carry out that particular task. So parameters that are defined in the function definition are called formal parameters, and the parameter which are in the function call, which are the actual values being passed, are known as actual parameters. So for example, let's say I am defining a function wherever in the program, hardly matters. So that I am saying min integer x comma integer y, and while calling that min function inside the main, I am saying min and within the bracket a comma b. So a and b, I can say, is the actual parameter, while the x and y are the formal parameters. Let us try to understand this with the help of an example. So I have taken one function where the function name is swap, and it is the return type is void, and there are two parameters, integer a and integer b. So here I will say a and b are the formal parameters, and what actually this function is doing, this function is actually I can say swapping the value of a and b by doing some simple arithmetic plus and minus. So b is equals to a plus b, a is equals to b minus a, and b is equals to b minus a. So initially we are combining the two values, then I am taking one value and storing in another, and the rest value is being stored in b, I can say. So after swapping, I am going to have the different numbers. Whenever I am going to print a, the value of b will be printed, and if I am going to print b, the value of a will be printed, and the execution is being returned. Now please notice the use of the keyword return. After this return, I have not given anything. Not given anything means I have not given 0 or any other thing, because the return type of swap function is void. It is not returning anything. So whenever this swap function is being called from its calling function, what all things calling function is going to hand over, calling function will give the control as well as two parameters, and at the time of return, this swap is just going to return the value of the control execution. It is not going to return any value of any variable, because the return type here is a void. So whatever variable names or whatever argument or parameter list I have written while defining the function inside the parameter list, just after the name, which is integer a comma integer b. So here a and b are formal parameters. Now coming to the actual parameters, let's see. Now this is one program. So this program as of now we have just written this swap function. Followed by this swap function, there is one main function in which I have taken a and b, two numbers to be swapped, and we have taken these two numbers from users by just telling them through the message that you need to enter two numbers to be swapped, and then we have taken C in a comma b, and before swapping the value of a and b is being printed. Then this a and b is being passed inside the swap function, and here these a and b are the actual parameters. So because these are given by main, so value of a will be whatever the value user is going to give, and so as well for b also. Swap a and b will take place, and within this swap a and b we have seen that there is you need to print after swapping. So let's see what happens. So for example, it is as the execution starts from the main function, and after declaration it is asking cout enter two numbers to be swapped, and these two numbers, let's say for example I am giving 10 and 20. Then this 10 and 20 are being passed. First of all, these 10 as a and 20 as b are being printed because that's what my code is saying. Then a swap function is being called as 10 comma 20. So swap 10 comma 20 is being called, and here whenever this swap is being called, the control passes here. So here a is going to have value 10, b is also going to have value 20, and now the values of 10 and 20, a and b are being swapped, and after swapping the values which will be printed will be 20 and then 10. So the agenda or the bottom line here is whatever parameters are being passed when a function is being called inside the calling function, those parameters are known as actual parameters. Value of this actual parameter is being transferred to the formal parameters, and then the whole execution takes place on those formal parameters. So the formal parameters I can say are just placeholders, or just you can say the variables in which these actual parameters are going to be copied. Here as of now I am using the word copied, but yes, you can say I am just enclosing it in the double inverted comma because I will be taking it in a short while. So in the calling function which is main, the value of two integers is read and passed to the swap function. These are actual parameters, and the formal parameters are those which are written in the first line of the function definition. Now what kind of relation is there between formal and actual parameter? There is a kind of very tight hand on hand relationship between, first of all, the type of formal and actual parameters must match. The order of formal and actual parameters should also match. So for example, I am giving one integer and one float inside the actual. So inside the formal parameter list there will be integer and float. It should not be like that float is being called first and integer is being called second. So the way in which, or the order in which they are being passed, then the order should be the same in which the way in which they are being received. So it's not only the type but also the order of the formal and actual parameter should match. Now as we are going deeper and deeper into the study of parameters, one very important term which comes here is default parameters. So as the name indicates, default means for which you need not to do anything. So that default is something which is there as it is. So we can provide default values for our function parameters too. So that means we need not to supply extra values for the parameters if there are default values set for some of the parameters. So here when we are going to invoke the function, we do not specify parameters, and if we are do not specifying parameters, that means there are some default values which are given to the parameter. So instead the function takes the default parameters which are provided in the prototype, and it will not look to the calling function by flashing an error that the parameters are not being passed. Some such thing will not happen if there are some default values for function parameters. For example, I am taking a function which is math operations, returning an integer value having 3 parameters. One is integer a, another one is integer b, and third one is integer c. Now please have a careful look in the inside onto the parameter list. So parameter list, which is the formal parameter list here, is says integer a comma, that means no value for integer a, then it is saying integer b is equals to 3. So for the second parameter I can say 3 is the default value, integer c is equals to 2, and for the third parameter which is c, the default value is 2. So here are 3 parameters, one which is without the default value, another one which is with the default value of 3, and third one which is c with the default value equals to 2, and then after some operation it is returning a multiplied by b divided by c. Now the trick which is there is there lies in calling the function. Now let's see. Within the main I have taken 3 integer values, I have declared 3 integer variables a, b, c, and with a cout statement stating that integer values for a, b and c, I have taken 3 values. Now the variable a, b and c are having 3 values with me. Now one thing which can be noticed here is you can have the same name to the formal parameters as well as to the actual parameters, or you can have different names too. So here we have the first call to our function math operation is with one argument. So I am calling the math operation as cout, call to math operation with one argument, math operation a. So here what will happen? Here the value of a I am passing here from the calling function, but I am not passing the value of b as well as value of c. So value of b and value of c will be taken by those parameters, those will be taken as those values which are already set inside the function definition, which is 3 and 2 respectively for b and c. So I can say the default value for b is 3, the default value for c is 2, and the value of a I am going to pass in the first call to this function math operation. So I hope this is clear. I am just calling math operation with value a, value of b, default value of b which is 3 will be taken, default value of c which is 2 will also be taken, and the value of a I am passing here because in the function definition there was no default value of a. So now one thing is very clear, in every call to this math operation we need to pass at least the value of the first parameter which is a. Now coming to the second call. So second call says, so call to math operation with 2 arguments is a and b. Now what is going to happen here? So math operation a comma b, the value of a is given by the calling function, so is the value of b. So here value, default value of b which is 3 will not be considered, only the default value of c will be considered, because default value is going to suppress if you are going to pass the actual value of the parameters. So default parameters are being used, or I can say default value of the parameters will be used only in that case if you are not passing that value from the calling function. If the value from the calling function is being passed, then default value will be suppressed and the value passed from the calling function will take over. So here in the second call I am passing a and b. So a it is not having any default value. B, it is having a default value, but it will be overtaken by the value from here. And C, in any case, it is having default value. Now also please notice that there is no need even to mention C here in the call, because that will be taken care by the system. Now coming to call to math operation with 3 arguments. I am going to call that math operation again with passing all the 3 arguments. So which is A, B and C. So A is not having any default value. Well, default value of B is overtaken by the value of being passed from here, and so is for C. So now default values of B and C, which are 3 and 2 respectively, will not be used for the third call. For the first call, both these values will be used. For the second call, only the value of C will be used. For the third call, both of those default parameter values will not be used. Just A, B, C are the values which are being passed from the calling function, that is from the main function, and accordingly it is going to work. So values for 10, 4, 6. So with first argument you can verify the result, where that is A multiplied by B divided by C is going to give me 15, that when value of A as 10 is being passed, and instead of 4 and 6, 3 and 2 will be taken as default parameters. Call to math operation with 2 arguments is going to give me 20 when the value of A and B are being passed as 10 and 4, and value of C is taken as its default value, which is 2. And while in the case of the third thing, so that is the third argument, it is going to give me 6. So the first call was only with 1 argument, other 2 will take default values. Next call with 2 arguments, third is going to have default value. Third call with all the 3 arguments, no one is going to get the default value. So here in the third case, all the default values will be ignored. We can say default arguments or default parameters are actually kind of thing which can be very, very useful, or it's a kind of facility which can be very, very useful. But while providing the default parameters, we need to be very, very careful that we should always start from the rightmost parameter. That means if we have total list of 5 parameters and 3 are those default parameters, so those 3 will take the rightmost position inside the parameter list. Also, we cannot skip a parameter in between and provide the default value for the next parameters. It is not allowed to skip a parameter in between and then you provide the default value for the next upcoming parameter. That is also not allowed. So all the default parameters on the rightmost side of the parameter list, we can say. Now coming to one very, I can say, important idea while using the parameters, that is const parameters. So const, as the name indicates, it's constant. So here const parameter says we can pass the constant parameters to function using a keyword, and that keyword is nothing but const, C-O-N-S-T. So when a parameter or a reference is const, it cannot be changed inside the functions. Now please try to understand the difference between const parameters and default parameters. For default parameters, we are giving the values when these function is being defined, as we have done in the previous example, that value of B as 3 and value of C as 2 are given when the function was defined, while here it is the parameter or we can say the reference which is constant and it cannot be changed inside a function. If a parameter is given in the parameter list in the function definition as const integer a, then within the body of the function, if you want to change, for example, if you want to say a is equals to a by 10 or a plus plus, that is not allowed, because the parameter is being passed as a constant parameter by using the word const. So when there is a constant parameter, it cannot be changed inside the function. So we have to be very, very careful. If we cannot pass a const parameter, if we are passing a const parameter, we have to be careful with couple of things. What? So as I have told you that there is a strong hand in hand relationship between formal parameters and actual parameters. So here, while passing the or while using the facility of const parameters, we have to be very, very careful, in the sense that we cannot pass a const parameter to a non-const formal parameter. That means your formal parameter is a non-const formal parameter, so that cannot be passed to a const parameter. That means your formal parameter has to be a constant parameter if you are passing it to a constant parameter inside the function. Non-const formal parameters cannot be passed to a constant parameter. But yes, vice versa is possible. We can always pass const and non-const parameter to a const formal parameter. So if there is a formal parameter which is constant, we can always pass either the constant parameter or non-constant parameters. Both are allowed, but the opposite cannot be done. Similarly, if we are using const parameters, we can also have a const return type. So return type could be const. So if my return type is of type const, that means constant. So as the name indicates, this return type can also not be modified. So if you are going to use the facility of constant parameters, or we can say constant return types, you have to be very, very careful. But yes, default parameters are kind of, we can say, things which are kind of a bit easy to use in the sense, but yes, both are having different we can say application usage. If we are using constant parameters or if we are using constant return types, that means these are the values which are freezed in the sense they cannot be changed by the or inside the function, they cannot be modified. But if default parameters we are using, those default parameters I can say can be very easily overridden or overtaken by the actual values which are being passed. So in this lecture we have covered basically three topics. One is formal parameters and actual parameters. So in order to summarize, I can say actual parameters are the parameters which calling function or the values which calling function is passing to the called function, and whatever called function is going to write inside their prototype or inside their function definition is actually what you call your formal parameters. Now next topic which we covered was default parameters, and we have seen an example using a particular function in which two default parameters are used. So the first call was not using any, the second call was using one parameter default value, not for the another, and the third call is using the both. And in the last we have seen another idea which is const parameters. So constant parameters or maybe constant return values which cannot be modified. So hope you have enjoyed the lecture. Thank you for patient hearing, and here is a list of references which are being used in preparation for these lectures.